Before we get into this video, I would like to thank my patrons, Harpy and Salvatore Di Pietro. You guys are awesome. Hello all, and welcome back to the channel. I'm gonna keep this intro brief. Today we are gonna talk about Slipstream Space, Halo's own mechanism for faster than light travel. Oh, and to top that off, we have a special guest in this video, Installation 00, who will explain the mechanics of Slipspace. They have awesome stuff on their channel, from lore and theory videos to scientific most detailed breakdowns. They have a variety of Halo content that will interest you. 00 also has a lorecore channel dedicated to things other than Halo, and an Ambient Wonders channel. I will have it all linked below in the description and comments. Before we get into this brain-melting topic, however, the YouTube algorithm has really been hurting me as of late, so if you wouldn't mind liking and commenting, that would be awesome. The subscribe button also helps tremendously, it allows me to grow, takes only a second, and it allows you to follow my channel. The bell icon notifies you when new videos drop too. There is also a link tree in the description and comments, which you can just use to reach my Discord, Patreon, other channels, Instagram, etc. Super easy, just tap or click the link and it shows you all the spots you can follow me. Patreon is getting some cool stuff too, got a new special Destiny fan project in the works, first part is out now on the Destiny channel. That said, let's just get right into the video before I mess up this intro any further. Slipstream Space, also known as Slipspace or Sha Fujikawa Space, is effectively another domain of existence which is woven in with our own universe, or rather above or below it. Slipspace consists of 11 non-dimensions utilized for faster than light travel. Imagine for a second that our universe is a piece of paper. Now crumble it into a ball, and that can represent how one uses slip to traverse large distances. A good real-life example could be that of the wormhole, a concept you have certainly heard of in books, science fiction, etc, etc. Let's go back to that sheet of paper. Fold it in half, take a pencil, and poke a hole in it. Instead of going across the paper, you're going through the hole and coming out on the other side. This is a far faster way of getting to where you have to go. Well, because Slipspace is a crumbled ball, it's more difficult and complicated to navigate. Still quicker because your destination is technically within easier reach, you just have to be careful. It certainly beats sitting in cryo for centuries to millennia between star systems. Another way to envision it could be this. Our universe is the paper, and Slip is a big series of yarn threads looping around and through the sheet, which folds and crumbles as a result. While Slipspace itself is non-spatial, the yarn represents the vector of a traveling ship relative to our universe. If you are still lost, which is honestly pretty possible, we are trying to visualize that which is impossible to accurately visualize, here is a final example. Imagine there is a mountain between you and your destination. You're on a road, which, if you follow, will definitely allow you to reach your destination, but it goes around the mountains. It would take a really long time to get to where you gotta go. So long that by the time you get there, the opportunity for whatever it is you intend to do at your destination will have passed. So you decide to climb up the nearest mountain and down the other side in a more direct route. It will certainly be risky and very difficult to navigate, but you will arrive at your destination much faster than if you went all the way around. Of course, certain factors can determine how easy your ascent is. If you are a seasoned mountaineer with the right equipment, knowledge of how to navigate the environment, etc., you can reliably traverse the harsh terrain in a consistent amount of time. If you are less experienced and ill-prepared, well, the risk factor goes up significantly for you, atop the fact that the time to traverse the mountain goes up significantly as well. This logic applies to Slipspace. The UNSC, as an example, generally was for the longest time far less experienced than its Covenant counterpart. As a result, what would happen is a human ship would flee, the Covenant fleet would track its trajectory, follow, pass the human vessel, and wait for the UNSC to become vulnerable again. In the case of the Forerunners, who were far more advanced than the Covenant and UNSC, they could traverse vast distances near instantaneously on galaxy-spanning scales. This is where we get into the direct capabilities of various groups. The UNSC's Slipspace drives somewhat vary in quality as of Halo Infinite. Humanity has had decades of experience reverse engineering alien technology, and as such it has become exceptionally good at adapting foreign technology into its ships. Think of them as the Romans. During the First Punic War, Rome found itself at war with Carthage. However, Carthage was a naval power, Rome wasn't really a naval power. A Carthaginian boat wound up running aground on the shores of modern-day Italy, aka Roman territory. Rome took the boat, figured out how the design was superior to their own, and then they adopted and innovated upon it. Very quickly, Rome became a naval power. It was still less experienced than Carthage, but it used other new innovations like the Corvus to even out the playing field. This is kind of the case with the UNSC, but unlike Rome, the UNSC's ability to standardize new innovations is lacking for obvious industrial reasons. As a result, ships like the Infinity or far smaller Winter-class prowlers have some of the best and most advanced slipstream capabilities in the human sphere. However, reverse-engineered technology is really hard to produce. In the Infinity's case, it is essentially just a spacefaring titanium brick with a ton of weapons strapped to a salvaged Forerunner drive. For every advanced vessel, there are far more ships with older, outdated drives. Even so, the UNSC has come far, and it is still orders of magnitude more experienced than it was in 2525, when they first encountered the Covenant. The Covenant isn't exactly a thing anymore, but there are remnants and various splinter groups who are either attempting to revive the old regime, like the late Julim Dama's Covenant, and then there are others who wish to surpass the Covenant and make a name for themselves, like Aatrox and his Banished, the current antagonists of the Halo franchise. However, all of them make use of or base their technologies on Covenant tech. The Covenant based their own tech on Forerunner artifacts they recovered. As a result, the Covenant got a big head start and were incredibly advanced by the time they encountered humanity in 2525. In an old discussion video I had with Halo Canon, I basically equated the early war UNSC to a puppy attempting to bark at an aircraft carrier. Cute, feisty, but what's it really gonna do? However, there is a big caveat to the Covenant's technological superiority. They only copied, they didn't innovate. So as a result, while powerful, their tech was laughably inferior to the Forerunners who they worshipped as gods. The Covenant can traverse Slipstream space very accurately and very quickly, but it is nothing compared to the Forerunners. Speaking of which, the Forerunners and their AI were able to traverse the galaxy near instantaneously. To top that off, they were able to achieve incredible feats. They moved entire worlds when needed. No, not just their artificial Halo ring worlds. I mean, actual celestial bodies. The Lesser and Greater Arcs, which constructed the Halo rings, each have, well, had in the Greater Arc's case, a central foundry which contained a planet or planetoid that could be stripped down to construct a ring. You can actually see this foundry in action in Halo 3. Truth be told, my favorite moment in the entire original 3 Halo games was that awesome cutscene where the Arbiter and Master Chief overlook a freshly constructed Halo ring. So good! If only we had H3A. A fan can dream. Slipspace can also be weaponized. For those who played the games, Halo Reach's Long Night of Solace mission demonstrates this perfectly, but a far better example in lore would be the final confrontation between Mendicant and Offensive Bias. Offensive Bias effectively weaponized Slipspace to beat their AI counterpart. My How a Galaxy Fell video details this fight. Check it out if you want, but let's get into the weirder parts of Slip, shall we? I'll just say this right off the bat, I am not even close to an expert in any field of science. I'm just a nerd that likes to read a lot of books. Granted, that's pretty much like the base requisite for any future theoretical physicist attempting to graduate college, but anyways, I barely understand the stuff in this video. Actually, I don't understand it at all. Slipspace is something beyond that. It's not something we can rationalize. The human brain is simply unable to comprehend any more than the 1 temporal and 3 spatial dimensions of the universe, you know, X, Y, and Z. So we can try to demonstrate or at least come up with an idea of how the mechanics of Slipspace works. That said, I'm not nearly intelligent enough to accomplish this, or at least just not educated in the required field to the degree I need to be. I am a simpleton, a Neanderthal attempting to bash rocks together in comparison to the big-brained man appearing as today's special guest. It's true. Here's installation 00.
Thank you, Ancilla, and don't sell yourself short. You can certainly hold your own in an intellectual conversation. I know, I've seen it. Anyway, hey everyone, I'm Installation 00, and I'll just touch on the mechanics of Slipspace, hopefully without making it too complex to understand. Now, you've already heard the analogy that travelling through Slipspace allows the ship to bypass the impossibly long distances that separate star systems by effectively crumpling or folding up space-time, and then the ship jumps the gap. This is a fine analogy, however it goes a little bit deeper than this. In the aforementioned analogy, Slipspace would then be likened to as a traversable wormhole, otherwise known as an Einstein-Rosen bridge. Basically 2 points of space connected together by an extreme curvature of space-time, not unlike black holes, except with black holes you can't escape them once you pass the event horizon, and a traversable wormhole, as the name suggests, is traversable. You can enter one side and exit the other. The issue here is that while the physical appearance of the entrance into and exit of Slipspace seemingly suggests something approximating a traversable wormhole, the space in between the entrance and the exit aren't a stabilized tunnel between the two. Slipspace is defined as a dimensional subdomain of alternate spacetime consisting of 11 non-visible, infinitesimal dimensions. The easiest way to make sense of this is that we live in a 4-dimensional universe, 3 spatial dimensions, x, y, and z, and 1 temporal dimension, otherwise known as time. But let's just focus on the spatial aspect. We're all familiar with 0 dimensions, 1 dimensions, 2 dimensions, and 3 dimensions. These are basic tropes of geometry we all cover in basic education of infants and toddlers, shape-sorting games. This is because we are 3-dimensional physical creatures living within a 3-dimensional physical universe, and our senses have evolved to allow us to interact with those 3 dimensions and understand the passage of time. Anything above 3 spatial dimensions does not and will not make sense or be able to be observed or comprehended by the human mind. The dimensions of Slipspace exist above that of the normal dimensions of spacetime. These dimensions are intertwined and completely integrated into each other and the normal dimensions of space. They aren't massive planes of space like the 3 dimensions of space, and are instead bundled up infinitesimally small dimensions grouped and interlocked at every possible conceivable place in the 3-dimensional universe at a deeper than quantum scale. In these dimensions there is no space. There is no time. Even the normal laws of physics do not apply in these hyperdimensions. Because of this, moving any physical 3-dimensional object directly into Slipspace would result in near-instant disunification. Basically, the laws of physics governing how atoms behave, the strong and weak nuclear forces, the distances and times, break down. So the physical object that only exists in 3-dimensional space because of these laws is suddenly no longer bounded by these laws, turning whatever the object is into a string of subatomic particles and thermal energy. Ships that enter Slipspace must be contained within a bubble of normal space-time, so the ship generates a quantum-stabilized field around the ship at a rate of 4 quadrillion calculations per second simply to maintain itself against the fluctuating background of Slipspace. The Slipspace engine then generates a microscopic black hole that is then rapidly expanded in size using exotic energy and stabilizing fields, and then the entire ship is moved through into Slipspace, where the often millions of tons of ship transition seamlessly to the infinitesimally small hyperdimensional space between spaces. Now within the Slipstream field, the normal laws of physics do not apply, and distances and times between huge distant points of space are now more easily accessible by using the ship's normal sublight engines to move through Slipstream space, where again the velocities don't translate to the same as they would in normal space. So the entrance and exit to Slipspace that we so commonly see displayed is actually somewhat of a traversable wormhole into the tiny hyperdimensions of Slipstream space. As far as moving through Slipspace is concerned, again you've also heard that the normal dimensions of space-time would be a sheet of paper, and a string intersecting the paper at all points would be the vector of Slipspace. In reality, the string would be the vector that the bubble of normal spacetime that contains the ship travels through the altered geometry of the 11 dimensions of Slipspace. So the distance, time and vector that we conventionally apply to Slipspace travel is actually an illusion, caused by the observers witnessing the transition through Slipspace from within a bubble of normal spacetime. There is some confusion, however, because the foreigners had a more exquisite understanding of Slipspace and described several of these dimensions as independent realms of Slipspace, so to speak. Meanwhile, the UNSC and the likes of Dr. Halsey simply describe it as a highly intricately folded interlacing of all 11 dimensions. Now, if the UNSC interpretation is correct, then yes, it's a mishmash of hyperdimensions. However, if the foreigner interpretation is correct, then it could be that Slipspace most commonly travelled through is actually a higher dimension, such as the 4th dimension, and the other dimensions are reserved for higher vibrations, frequencies, and realities of the universe as a whole. And, to really add a spanner to the works, both interpretations could be true simultaneously, and both could be incorrect simultaneously. The true realities and appearance of Slipspace are seemingly utterly unknown to any being that is evolved in the normal dimensions of spacetime. Even the foreigners, with their immense and sophisticated technology, are still at the mercy of their own senses. And as such, it's entirely possible that the only beings in the universe that can actually see the true realities of Slipspace and the universe at large are those that rate at tier 0 on the technological scale, being that of transcendent, the precursors, the flood, and hypothetically, the endless. Even in the Halo universe, the mechanics of Slipspace are only understood so far as to allow us to transition through Slipspace to shorten the immense astronomical distances between star systems. The true reality of the mechanics behind Slipspace are still unknown. We only know deep enough to the level at which it helps us. And this is seemingly true of humans, Covenant species, and quite possibly of the foreigners as well. So as such, even the greatest minds that have been applied to the problem of Slipspace still have no idea about its true realities.